Today I am standing in front of what easily could be considered America's very first stealth fighter, a PBY Black Cat Catalina. You're not going to believe what these huge float planes could do against the Japanese Navy in the Pacific during World War II, so stay tuned. Thank you for checking out History X. Today I am at the Commemorative Air Force Lake Superior Squadron in front of a PBY Black Cat Catalina that they have on display to talk to you about the history of the PBY Black Cats during the Guadalcanal campaign in the Pacific in 1942. But if we're just meeting for the first time, my name is Ken Stano and I am not only a World War II historian, but also a mechanical engineer and pilot. If you're not familiar with the PBY Black Cats, specific squadrons that painted the PBY Catalina flat black so that they could participate in night missions during the Guadalcanal campaign to knock out what was known as the Tokyo Express. During the 1942 Guadalcanal campaign in the Pacific, the Japanese began resupplying their positions and outposts ashore almost exclusively at night. Their ships and barges would move in small convoys in darkness, guided by maybe one or two Japanese destroyers. Allies began calling this resupply effort by the Japanese the Tokyo Express. And while it was virtually impossible for the U.S. surface combat ships to detect and stop these Japanese supply efforts that were happening at night, it seemed to be a mission ideally suited for the PBY Catalina. You see, their large size enabled them to carry large quantities of fuel and weapons, allowing them to patrol deep into enemy-controlled areas. While the PBY's large size and slow speed basically rendered them clumsy and vulnerable to day attacks, after dark, they could become agile, low-flying hunters. So as part of an experiment, a squadron of PBYs were painted a matte black, basically a paint mixture that was made from charcoal dust and grease.
It was explained that we're going to be doing mainly night work, and they wanted us to be blacked out completely. They put flame arresters on the exhaust so that you couldn't see the exhaust. All lights were blacked out. The cockpit windows were darkened. All we could use in the cockpit for illumination was red light. Our mission was primarily to find any Japanese shipping that we could. After the attacking force would leave, we would go in and drop our 4 bombs and hope to get a hit.
The PBY Catalinas were also equipped with radio altimeters. This allowed them to descend to just over the ocean surface at night. This was an area that enemy fighters like the Zero really feared to descend. The PBY's extremely long range allowed them to stay up all night long, searching out enemy supply ships with their radar, or they could head to designated locations, bays and coves where it was thought Japanese supply ships might be hiding out. Basically, the planes would take off at dusk and return right at daylight. And this strategy was a game changer. You see, these night raids were incredibly successful with an immediate impact on the shipping supply lane known as the Tokyo Express. And soon, these stealth attack PBY squadrons soon became known as Black Cats. Additionally, because they took off from the water, it was almost impossible for the enemy to locate where these bases were. There was no long runway to see from the air, so they could pretty much put a squadron like this at any island throughout the Pacific.
We'd fly perhaps 14 hours, go up through the what they called the slot between the islands of the Solomons. The enemy was all around there. They had pretty much been kicked off of Guadalcanal, but they were in all the others. You can see the wake. It's a luminescent, phosphorescent type wake because of little bacteria in the water. And so if the ship's underway and you're at 4,000 feet, you can see the shape of the ship. And quite frequently we'd see a line of a ship. In addition to the wind, you have the problem of swells. And the swells are not always lined up with the wind. You may be wanting to take off into the wind, as you always do in a plane if possible, and the swells are over here. coming at you, and so you've got to land along the swell rather than crash into it. It's like hitting a stone wall if you crash into it.
Christmas Eve 1944. Probably the swells were higher than this house. And then you had a wind that was probably 75, 80, 90 degrees off of that. And the fellow was the commander of that airplane he was a lieutenant commander. And he says, "What are you going to do?" Bonnet and I looked at one another. Bonnet says, "We're not going to stay here. We're going to take off." He says, "You can't take off." Bonnet says, "What do you mean? We're going to try it." To make a long story short, we bounced off a couple of those swells and struggled into the air. The old airplane just chugged away and finally picked up enough speed to keep in the air.
There's a lot to be learned from the PBY Black Cat and these squadrons. It was a plane that wasn't designed for this type of mission, but they improvised and found a use for a slow and huge plane like this to become a deadly and feared weapon against the Japanese. If you want to learn how to support a group like the Commemorative Air Force Lake Superior Squadron, please click the link that I'll have in the description for this video below. And of course, if you enjoy videos about planes like this video if you did, subscribe if you haven't. My name is Ken Stano. Thank you for checking out History X.